following podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Like what you hear? Want more of it ad-free, uncensored, and earlier? Sign up today at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and start getting more for as little as $2 a month.
Don't miss your favorite superstars take center stage to forge the future of the hottest new brand in WWE.
Alright, I think I have everything ready here. Oh, that might be a good book. I'm looking forward to that one. Who knows when I'll read it. Oh, hi kids. The Jeff DeHaan here. Welcome to Forging the Future. I was just admiring a book I purchased today by Peter Benchley, author of Jaws, called White Shark. I don't know if it's going to be any good, but I love me some monster horror and the like, so look forward to reading that one, but I don't exactly get a chance to read that often, so it tends to take me a while to get through a book, so my to-read pile tends to be pretty huge, so this just adds to that. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm of course here to discuss NXT. And this week, there has been no bigger news in the world of NXT than the announcement of NXT going live head-to-head on Wednesday nights with AEW. Now I know I finished off last week's free show talking about this very subject, but at the time it was, it was kind of in a weird place. It wasn't really just rumor. It was more or less confirmed, but it wasn't confirmed by WWE. They hadn't made the official announcement at that point yet. Well, now they have. In fact, a day or two after I recorded, WWE actually made the announcement and made it official. So yes, NXT will be going head-to-head with All Elite Wrestling on Wednesday nights in a 2-hour live program filmed at Full Sail, which will be interesting to see what Full Sail can do with a live setting, or if they will even still go with the Full Sail production crew, or if WWE will bring in their regular production crew. I'm inclined to think they'll bring in their own crew for this now. They've been doing live shows for decades. They know what they're doing. With all due respect to the Full Sail University production crews there, I feel like, especially, at least for the first few weeks, they'll probably want their own tried and true WWE crew on hand. I don't know what to think about this. I mean, a lot of people were happy. The majority of the NXT roster was extremely happy about this. And it's not to say that I'm not. I mean, on one hand, first of all, I'm torn because NXT is my favorite part of WWE programming, and I've loved All Elite Wrestling since their inception, for lack of a better term, back at All In. Now, I realize All Elite hasn't been going for very long, but I've really kind of become that fanboy. I really got swept up in the genesis of All In and how that organically kind of grew to become All Elite Wrestling. I'm a big fan of some of the people in AEW, like Jericho and Cody. Both men are probably within my top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time. Yes, Cody is that high. I got a lot of respect for that dude. And I've become a big fan of guys like the Young Bucks and Adam Page. Yes, everything they've done to push Adam Page has worked for me. I'm also a fan of women like Allie and Brandy and Britt Baker, who I've all seen and heard of before this. And I've become a fan of women like Nyla Rose, who I didn't know prior to this. A lot of the ladies from Japan as well, I'll be honest, their names are escaping me. Riku was one of them. A lot of the names are escaping me right now because I didn't hear about them until recently. So I'm less familiar with their gimmicks and who they are. But I look forward to getting to know a lot of these wrestlers in the future. And that's the issue. It's got me torn. What am I going to do come Wednesday nights when these two shows are going head to head? I mean, yes, we're in an age where you don't have to. Like NXT, while it's going to be going live on the USA Network, I believe it's still going to air on the WWE Network like a day later or 2 days later or whatever. So we are in a world where you're not beholden to only watching one. It's not like the Monday Night War where Raw and Nitro aired at the same time and that was it. And even then, that wasn't it. I can't speak for America, but up here in Canada, we had midnight replays. Like whenever it was on TSN, Raw would literally start an hour later. It would go from that, back then it was 2 hours. So it would go from 9 o'clock until 11 o'clock. There would be an hour of sports news. And then at midnight, they would show it again. And I believe, excuse me, I believe TNT would do the same thing with Nitro. I could be wrong. Or maybe they would air Nitro the next day on Tuesday afternoon or something like that. So even back in the Monday Night Wars, you could get away with watching both pretty easily. And it's even easier now. So my complaint as far as what am I going to watch is, quite frankly, because I don't have a lot of time. It's hard enough for me often to be able to watch NXT and NXT UK. And I can get it done, but, you know, between job and family stuff and trying to keep up with Raw and SmackDown and All Elite. And yes, AEW doesn't have a TV show right now, but they have Being the Elite and they have all of these Road to All Out or Road to whatever pay-per-view videos that they're posting on YouTube. And I want to keep up with everything, so I'm watching those as well. So it's tricky to find the time, let alone now moving NXT to a 2-hour program. I don't know what it means for this podcast, and I don't know what it's going to mean for NXT as a whole. Since I'm kind of on this tangent of what am I going to watch, I might as well start with the podcast aspect of it. When NXT goes to 2 hours, it's probably going to be difficult for me to keep up with NXT UK as well. So for the purpose of this show, I may wind up making it just NXT focused, if that. I've also incorporated a lot of AEW talk in the last few months because I am a big fan, and you know, I kind of shoehorned in the idea of it's a new promotion. You know, it's the future of wrestling. It's like forging the future. I can talk about it, right? Because how else was I going to talk about something that's garnered my attention and respect as quickly as they have? But it's gonna wind up being a lot of wrestling. And on one hand, this is great. There's never been more options than there is right now. And wrestling has never been more accessible than it is right now. If you've got the time. Full disclosure, I don't actually have the WWE Network. There's a few reasons. I mean, there's loopholes to get it in Canada here. I mean, yes, it's in Canada if you're a Rogers customer. If you're not a Rogers customer, there's loopholes to get it, but I just don't want to be bothered to jump through those hoops. So I don't. For that reason. Also, if I'm not going to have the time to actually watch enough stuff, I feel like it's not worth it. If I can't get my actual $9.99 worth or however much a month out of it because I don't get to watch enough of it, then it's not worth it for me to get. As I said, there's lots of different options, lots of different ways to keep up and watch wrestling. So I've been able to get by so far. So we'll see. When it comes to this podcast, first of all, NXT is moving to USA 2 weeks sooner than the debut of AEW on TNT. And so far, AEW still hasn't announced any kind of name for the show. The longer it goes, the more I'm starting to think it is just going to be AEW on TNT, which I think is a fantastic idea. It feels very old school to me, very classic. Like before, you had your Nitros and stuff like that. It was WCW on TNT or on whatever, and if that's the name of the program, I mean, it's got your name in it. Like, yes, you could say WWE Raw, but everybody just shortens it to Raw or SmackDown or whatever. So to be AEW on TNT, then people are talking about your promotion just by talking about the program itself. Hey, are you watching AEW tonight? Because it's not like, hey, are you watching Wednesday Night Dynamite or whatever they were. There was a few ridiculous names that they had copywritten. So, at least it looks like it might just be AEW on TNT, which I love. But I digress. And I totally lost my train of thought. Yes. 2 weeks. That's right. So, AEW's October 2nd. NXT is starting on USA on September 18th. So, at the very least, you'll probably hear a couple episodes of this podcast talking about the new NXT. But I don't know if I'm going to keep doing that, or will I move on to an AEW show? Because I do love both shows, but AEW's really grabbed my attention. And the other thing is, if I stick with NXT, am I going to be happy about it? And this brings me to the other thing that I wanted to talk about. Vince is going to be taking over control of NXT. And while that's not a bad thing necessarily, by the way, as of this recording, happy birthday, Vince. He turned 74 today, which is the 24th, because I'm recording this on the Saturday. So happy birthday, Vince. Try not to sneeze. He's apparently taking over creative control of NXT. And my concern, as much as they were trying to get some NXT people onto the main roster, my concern is that Vince is going to look at it and say, we need some star power. We need some Roman Reigns' and some AJ Styles', etc., on NXT to get people to watch. And it's going to basically turn it into just another Raw or SmackDown. And if that happens, I don't know how much I'm going to really want to watch. It's not that I hate Raw and SmackDown. The number one reason why I don't watch them is a lack of time. It's just too much. Between those two shows alone, it's 5 hours of wrestling. When I can catch highlights, whether it's hopping on YouTube and watching a highlight video that someone created, or more often than not, I hop on YouTube and just watch those top 10 videos that WWE makes themselves. It keeps me up to date on at least the biggest storylines. And it's like 5 to 7 minutes for those top 10 videos. And it keeps me up to date. And if there's anything that I want more detail of, I can just go onto WWE's YouTube, and they usually have more detailed videos of results from those shows, and I can find whatever I need. But that's pretty much what I do for Raw and SmackDown. And if NXT is going to turn into just a third Raw or SmackDown, then I kind of feel like, what's the point? Like, the reason I've been focusing on NXT is not only is it my favorite WWE programming, and it is, and that was probably the main reason why I decided to focus on it, but also because it set itself apart. It was something different. To an extent, 205 Live was as well, but frankly, I was just a bigger fan of NXT. And throughout my focusing on NXT, NXT UK started up. So I obviously stuck with that as well. At the time, thinking that NXT UK was just going to be another NXT in the sense of they could cherry pick from UK for the main roster as well. That hasn't really happened. I don't think anyone has actually gone from NXT UK onto the main roster. We've seen some people go from like 205 Live, like Noam Dar, to be a regular on NXT UK, and Pete Dunne from NXT going to NXT UK. Mustache Mountain, for that matter, as well. But generally, nobody has gone from NXT UK to Raw or SmackDown or anything like that. So I'm really unsure of... I don't want to say unsure of the future of NXT. I think it'll be fine. I don't think this will be a flop. And honestly, worst case, if it is, and USA decides to pull the plug, they can just go right back to their old format of TV tapings and putting it on the WWE network. And NXT will still have their cult following, for lack of a better term. And I know a lot of people who are big fans of NXT, like myself, are going to say, cult following's not really that great of a term. But when you compare it to the amount of people that watch the main roster shows and the amount of people that watch AEW, it almost is a bit of a cult following. And I'm a little concerned with NXT simply because AEW has been selling out time and again. I think this will be an interesting Wednesday Night War. But I'm genuinely not sure what the future is going to hold for NXT. And I don't just mean as far as like airing on USA. I'm talking about like what I said about what the roster is going to be like. There's been talk of that they're just going to fold the 205 Live and NXT rosters together. And I haven't heard a lot of Raw and SmackDown wrestlers going over to NXT. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that. I think the only thing I really heard was a potential feud between the OC and the Undisputed Era. That there was like hints and rumors about that. But I find it hard to believe that with Vince McMahon, 74-year-old Vince McMahon, at the helm, stubborn as he is to not let go, that he's not going to try to bring in his guys, his perceived big name stars. And I shouldn't say perceived, because it's not that they're not big name stars, but to bring in bigger names to try and bolster the NXT roster. And to an extent that's smart, especially if you're trying to compete with this upstart promotion. But in doing so, you kind of eliminate what made NXT what it is. And that is the hardworking men and women who were still fighting, like plain and simple. Part of what I think made NXT what it is because while they have WWE contracts, the people on that roster are still fighting to try and get onto the main roster. So they were still hungry. Whereas if you have your established stars, they're not going to have that same hunger as the current NXT roster members. Now, that being said, I realize I've been pulling a lot of on the other hand. Oy. I'm like an octopus here. 8 arms to hold you, and on the other hand. That was a horrible joke. Tried to pull out a Beatles reference, which subsequently would have also been a Veruca Salt reference. But it didn't work. It's late. I'm tired. And I'm rambling. But, on the other hand, this is competition now. And I've been saying for years and years and years that competition breeds a better product. While the WWE Network is great and having all the footage that they have is great, I've often thought that the worst thing for them was for WCW to go out of business, because then they didn't have any competition. And this is the first time, with all due respect to TNA/Impact, this is the first time WWE has had any real competition since WCW. So, even those established stars, if they wind up going to NXT, and that remains to be seen, as I said, there hasn't been any real rumors that say that's the case. Even they will probably have a certain, for lack of a better term, hunger, because they've got something to prove with their own programming. And you're probably going to hear me talk a lot about this in the next few weeks as it gets closer and closer, because as cautiously optimistic, as concerned, as whatever words you want to use to describe how I'm acting throughout this whole announcement, as I am, part of me is still excited because it's competition. And because, unlike the Monday Night War, I'm genuinely torn this time. See, with the Monday Night War, that was back in the day when I was extremely loyal to WWE. I'm one of those people who I'm almost loyal to a fault. You know, I followed WWE through the new generation era, and you know, the real low points in a lot of ways. And it's not that I'm not a loyal person, but I've also come to, you know, take off the rose-colored glasses from time to time, and because AEW really kind of connected with me, I'm really looking at that as, you know, a viable entertainment option when it comes to wrestling. But I do still love NXT. So what's a poor podcaster to do when my favorite WWE program and my favorite non-WWE promotion are going to go head to head? As I often say, time will tell. But I've rambled on enough about this, in fact, longer than I expected to. So let's move on to some TV, and we'll take a look at NXT for this week.
Hey, this is a commercial for patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, where you can get early access to episodes of your favorite WrestleMedia shows, get full uncut and uncensored versions of your favorite shows, and more. Don't want to hear this commercial on your podcast anymore? Sign up at our main event tier and get these episodes ad-free. Want to hear your own commercial here instead of ours? We've got tiers for that too. Visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and join the WrestleMedia revolution today.
It was actually a pretty entertaining program, I gotta say. Which isn't surprising. They're back into the fold. Presumably this is probably the last set of tapings before they go live. So we kicked things off with the Undisputed Era coming out for a promo. And I really dug this. This actually went a long way with me because I liked a lot of what they did here. Roderick Strong talked a lot about how he and Fish and O'Reilly got screwed at TakeOver. And I kind of thought this was just, typical heel banter, saying he got screwed. And for Strong, it kind of was. His way of saying he got screwed was that he never lost the match. He didn't get pinned in the North American title 3-way at TakeOver Toronto. And that's obviously a bit of a heel cop-out. I'm not complaining. I mean, he is a heel. It's a genuine thing for him to say. But I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out because it's a triple threat. You don't have to be pinned to lose the match. However, one thing I didn't realize was that in the tag title match, the non-legal man got pinned. I believe Kyle O'Reilly is the one that got pinned in this match, but in the final moments, Fish actually made the tag. So the non-legal man was the one that got pinned. So that actually does give the Undisputed Era a bit of a leg to stand on, so to speak, when it comes to a tag title rematch. And I'm sure Strong could easily insert himself back into the North American Championship picture. So we might still see this prophecy come to pass, and I think that would be a really interesting way to kick off the live era of NXT. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But I thought that was a really cool way to bring that stuff up in this promo. And it really went a long way with me. It was one of my favorite segments of the show. Another thing I really liked was at the tail end of this promo, as the Undisputed Era was heading to the back, their music was playing, someone else's music played. A guy by the name of Jordan Miles, the winner of the NXT Breakout Tournament. And in his hands, he was holding the NXT Championship contract that he won by winning said tournament. Now, when I say NXT Championship, I actually mean any NXT Championship. He could challenge. The stipulation was that the winner of the tournament would get a contract for a championship match of their choosing. So I find it really interesting that this is what he's choosing. Shows that the kid's got balls. Even Velveteen Dream, when he won a title contract back at one of those Worlds Collide events, he chose the North American Championship. Nah, Jordan Miles, he's taken a page out of the old Go Home Spot book, and he's going big. He ain't going home. So I love this. He impressed the hell out of me. So many guys in this tournament impressed me. I can't stress this enough. Go and watch this tournament if you haven't yet. There was a lot of great guys. We've seen a few of them kind of move towards 205 Live. I know Isaiah Swerve Scott was on this past week's 205 Live, as was Angel Garza. And they're well worth checking out. Very talented gentlemen. Everybody in this tournament was. Go watch this tournament. Fantastic. But Miles just stood there, holding the contract. And just let Cole do the talking. Cole tried to talk him out of it. Tried to tell him, oh, maybe you should challenge Shayna Baszler. And just kept going. And Miles, Didn't budge. Just stood there. Finally, reached out the contract towards Cole. As Cole reached out to grab it, boom. Miles dropped the contract to the floor and smiled. I loved this moment so much, and I'm a fan of Undisputed Era as well, but as the heels that they are, this was fantastic. And I'm sure in 2 weeks' time, when they actually have this match, because they announced that it is happening in 2 weeks, I believe, that Miles is not going to win the title. I mean, if he does, cool, with all due respect to Adam Cole, that would be awesome. I don't think it's the case, but I still love this storyline. I love what they're doing with it. This is a, go on, kid, make yourself famous kind of moment, and I am going to be on the edge of my seat rooting for Miles in this match, because I loved this story that they painted here, as simple as it was. It was really, really cool. I also enjoyed the Mansoor and Damian Priest match. A lot more than I expected. It's not really a secret here that so far I haven't been super impressed with Damian Priest. A lot of it is probably because he's had a lot of jobber matches. I think did he take on Keith Lee? I think he took on Keith Lee, and that so far I think had been my favorite match of his. This one is close. I don't know if I like this one more than the Keith Lee match, because, again, I'm a huge, huge fan of Lee, but Mansoor's another one that, man, impresses me every time he's in there. Again, it speaks on that hunger that I was talking about earlier. And Mansoor's just damn good. This was a really good match. What I liked about it is Priest was getting frustrated, and he showed a mean streak in here because Mansoor kept kind of evading him for the first half of the match. And Priest just, once he finally got a hold of him, he got really aggressive in there, and he showed a mean streak that I thought was really cool, and he needs to show that more often. I get that they have this whole, Archer gimmick where, he pretends to shoot an arrow at the screen and then his name goes up in flames and stuff. But just this aggression and this mean streak, it suits him. More so than this kind of stoic attitude that he shows a lot of the time. I want to see him pissed off. I want to see him mad and mean and just beat the crap out of his opponents. That being said, on the flip side, I really liked Mansoor's shine in this. When he gets going and he gets on a rhythm, man, he's really, really good. Like I said, Mansoor impresses me at every outing. He's another one that would have been a good candidate for the breakout tournament had he not already been on NXT TV prior to when the tournament happened. But he's another one that would have been cool for that. I would have really liked to see that. But yeah, great match all around. Aces from Mansoor and Damian Priest, which says something if that's coming from me. The ladies were in action. Oh, so lame. Mia Yim took on Vanessa Bourne. Side note, back to TakeOver Toronto. While not the actual TakeOver, I was genuinely surprised that we didn't see Vanessa Bourne and Aaliyah in action on the TV taping. Aaliyah is a Toronto girl, and the team of her and Vanessa Bourne are really fantastic heels. I look forward to seeing more from them in the future, but I thought they would have been a part of the TV taping, so I was a little surprised that they weren't. But that's just a side thing, just because Aaliyah was the hometown girl. But Aaliyah was here supporting her friend as Vanessa Bourne took the L against Mia Yim. I really dig Bourne's theme, and I guess to an extent it's kind of the Vanessa Bourne Aaliyah theme song. Really great theme. check that one out. Match itself was pretty good. Somewhat straightforward. Born jobbed to Yim here with a Scott Hall-esque sell of the Protect Ya neck. And I loved it. Oh, go check. If nothing else, just check out the finish of this match. We had some post-match shenanigans. Baszler came out, which I found kind of funny, kind of not. I had said before that this feud probably wasn't done, despite Baszler coming out on top at TakeOver. And sure enough, that's the case, because Baszler came out here. She offered Mia a chance to join forces with the Horsewomen. But she was having none of that, so the Horsewomen attacked Mia Yim. That's right, they're back, although Jessamine Duke still had her arm in a sling, so I don't know if she had a legit injury and they used this attack by Mia Yim to kind of give an excuse as to why she was banged up, or if the sling was just kayfabed and part of it. But she still had her arm in a sling. But either way, they beat up Yim, so obviously this feud is not over. I would not be surprised to see some sort of stipulation match between Baszler and Yim come TakeOver War Games, if they even let it go that far, because now that we're going to a 2-hour program on September 18th, we might see this get, what's the word I'm looking for? Expedited a little more quickly with the story. But either way, interesting to see that this feud isn't done. So obviously WWE still has some faith in Mia Yim, despite her not getting the job done at TakeOver. Let's see what else. Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic, a little kind of vignette played detailing their feud, which stalled because one of them was injured. I don't remember who. I think it was Dijakovic, but it's possible that it might have been Keith Lee. But they had a match where I believe it was a double count out, and they haven't had a chance to have a rematch since then, and that was months ago. So I believe one of them might have been injured, but obviously they're back to being healthy. I'm going to guess Dijakovic because we still haven't seen him in the ring, whereas we saw Keith Lee not long ago, a few weeks back, I believe. This video package was really, really well done, though. And I mean, it's WWE. We here at WrestleMedia, we talk about how good their packages are all the time. But again, it's well worth checking out. It was really, really cool. And that's, again, someone who's a Keith Lee fan, so I might be slightly biased. But check it out and see for yourself. Speaking of that breakout tournament, as I was earlier, Bronson Reed was in action against fellow Australia countryman Shane Thorne. This was a good showcase for both men. Not a bad match by any means. Nothing to necessarily write home about, but good enough. It was a good showcase for anyone who's not super familiar with Reed, but more importantly, it was a good showcase for Thorne as he's really trying to find his way as a singles guy now that Nick Miller has left, he left months ago, but Thorne was a part of The Mighty, or TM61, and now he's going it as a solo guy. Hopefully it works out for him. If not, he can always try to find a partner and maybe get back into the tag team scene. It looks like that's what Riddick Moss is doing on NXT house shows, as he's now a part of the Outliers instead of going solo. Velveteen Dream cut a promo, sitting on a couch again. Good stuff, but typical Dream stuff. It was a typical Dream sequence. Haha, see what I did there? Yeah, you did. Yeah, I'm lame. Deal with it. And main event time. Killian Dane finally in action against Matt Riddle. Really, really good match. The selling from Riddle in this was fantastic. He had his ribs taped up and he really sold that. And to his credit, Dane focused on the ribs throughout this entire match, hitting a lot of sentons and splashes and gut busters, and really focusing on that injury. I find like in matches you see a lot of people like they work a body part, whether it be an arm or a leg, you know, or even to an extent the back. But other than those, you don't see people focus on the ribs for an entire match. You know, they'll have some moves, but then it'll go away. But this was the entire match. And a big part of that goes to Riddle for his selling of the rib injury. Very, very well done. Dane got the job done with 3 Vader bombs at the end in a row. 3 Vader bombs to finally get the 1, 2, 3. That's what I loved about this match. This match made Dane in NXT. Now he looks like a monster. He looks like a force to be reckoned with. And it's not to say that he wasn't a monster prior to this, when he was attacking Riddle. But this is in an actual one-on-one capacity. Now he looks like a monster. He looks like someone you don't want to mess with. And because it took so much to put Riddle down, this actually really helped Matt Riddle as well. Like, this match made Dane in NXT, but Riddle certainly did not look weak in this match. So it really made both guys. This was fantastic. This turned out better than I expected it to be honest. And I didn't think it was going to be a bad match, but more the coming out of it. It turned out really well, and that made me really happy. And this feud's far, far from over, kids. Riddle got up after the match and took off down the aisle after Dane. Dane was already behind the curtain at this point, and that's when the show went off the air. Aha! But WWE cameras picked up where the show left off, and on WWE.com and presumably their YouTube, you can catch a brawl between the two in the back and even outside, where ladders and sheds got involved. And I believe, once again, Dane managed to be the one to walk away. But this feud, much like the thing with Yim and Baszler, is far from over. And that, my friends, well, it makes me pretty happy. I was going to say very happy, but we'll see. While I am a fan of Riddle, and I like what I've seen of Dane, let's see what else they can do together before I get too excited. But I'm happy they're continuing this feud. If this match is anything like, if what we're going to see is anything like this match, it'll be good stuff. And before I move on to NXT UK, which will be for the patrons, I have a bit of business to take care of. And that is in the form of a match of the week and an MVP of the week. This is tough, and I tried to think about it before starting to record, and I wasn't sure, so I decided to just say screw it and record and do it on the fly. Match of the week, I'm probably going to have to go with that main event, simply for everything I said. It made both men, it didn't harm either guy. Like, Riddle, yeah, he was the one looking at the lights by the time it was over, but I don't think this hurt him or his credibility in NXT by any means. And this, like, Dane's now a household name in NXT, as far as that goes, in my opinion. this made him. So that is definitely my match of the week, my MVP of the week. I'm going to take a quick look at my UK notes before I officially say, although I have an idea of the direction I'm going to go. You know what? Yeah, I'm not going to change my mind. I thought I was going to. I was looking at Kaylee Ray on the UK side of things because I really like what she's been doing, but I'm actually going to say Jordan Miles. I really, really loved that segment with the Undisputed Era, and I loved everything he did in it, as simple as it was. It was very much a less is more segment, and everything like he contributed to it. It was very less is more, and I really liked that a lot. All right, before we move on to the patron end of things, for those of you who listened last week, I threw out a option for a prize, and that prize, kids, was a copy of Best of Takeover 2018 on DVD, and all you had to do was listen last week and then go to WrestleMedia.ca, go to, I believe it's the Forging the Future page, and you can put in a code, and you had to put in the code that I said last week, and then listen this week and do the same thing. As of this recording, I don't know if anyone has. So if you're listening to this and you didn't catch last week's and you're like, oh, really? Go back, listen to last week's, find out what the code is, because I'm not going to tell you what last week's code is now. You got to go back and listen. That's the whole point. Put in that code and then put in this code, and you can get yourself that copy. And you only have a week. You only have until I'm recording next week, which will most likely be the Thursday, or sorry, my apologies, will most likely be the Friday or Saturday. So you're looking at probably, I'm going to make it by the Friday, because at the latest I'm recording, it'll be the Saturday. So you have until August 30th to get both of these codes in at WrestleMedia.ca to get yourself this copy of the DVD. And this week's code number 2, is Ciampa. CIAMPA, as in Tommaso Ciampa. But you only have to put in his last name. Ciampa is this week's code. Go and put it in. Go and put in the first one if you haven't already. And get yourself a copy of this DVD. So if there isn't anyone who's put in both codes by the time I record next week, y'all lose out, kids. Y'all lose out. I don't want you to lose out. I want you to have fun. That's why I'm doing this contest. So you can enjoy that sweet, sweet takeover goodness from 2018. Those fantastic matches. They were so good. So good. So go get you some. Go put in those codes. Get yourself a copy of Best of NXT TakeOver 2018 on me. Alright. Patrons, I got more coming for you. For the rest of y'all, forge that future. Later, kids.